So we don't want to waste time. so, so we dive in right away. We have to place this week's celebration in context, because tonight we want to focus on renew. Because we are all invited this week to renew our commitment to God and to renew our commitment to His church. But 50 years ago, when the church was erected, and this church was consecrated, 50 years after, it's a different time, a different period. And therefore, we have to place our celebration in context. We are living in a state of flux. Because we are living a time when there isn't any sense of certainty. That can be challenged. Life seems to be unstable. And we are not too familiar with the ground on which we are standing and living. Things are changing so rapidly that we can feel very fearful. In fact, we are living in an environment which can be described as volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Moreover, we acknowledge today and this evening that the universe, or there is a universal and profound fragility, that we are easily broken and damaged. And there is deep brokenness of our world and our community. I began by saying that we acknowledge that we are broken people. And indeed, we are. And then death. The forces of death and disorder continue to disrupt harmony at all levels of existence and ultimately endanger life. Sometimes we feel that we're not controlled. Sometimes we have the illusion that we are in control. But COVID has taught us different. And even as you as parents raise the children, you realize that to raise children today is very challenging. Very challenging because the world is moving at a very fast rate, and sometimes parents are unable to keep pace with the movement of the world. And in the church, things are moving rapidly that we cannot remain as we were 50 years ago. And that's why this week we are called to reflect on renewing our faith commitment. My dear brothers and sisters, the experience of our fragility can shake our faith. The experience of our fragility, that we are easily broken, we are easily damaged, we are standing and we're living on shaky ground, in a sense. You don't know what will happen tomorrow. Sometimes you question the future, what the next 50 years hold for this church. Sometimes things happen in our lives, and we ask ourselves, is God still faithful? Will God realize what he promised? Has God forsaken and forgotten us? And many times, our response to fragility is often a desire for solidity. And let me explain. There is a movement in the church, in the world, a movement of and a push for more rigid rules. People want to be more conservative. So we find that popping up in politics and even in the church and across society. That is the promotion and the preservation of traditional institutions, practices, and values. We react to fragility with zero tolerance approach. We also move towards the right wing, which supports tradition and authority. So you find that people are becoming more authoritarian, and they want the church to be more authoritative. They want the church to be more firm in its dealings with its people and the world. There's also a desire for us to cover it, to hide, to lie. Because we know that we are fragile, we know that we are broken, and we are afraid to make that visible. We are scared, and therefore we cover things up. We sweep things under the carpet, and that's what the church did. That's why we ended up in a sexual scandal. Because we are afraid to face reality. The belief that the stricter an individual, institution, or society is, we believe that the more stable it will be. And let me repeat this. We believe that the stricter an individual, an institution, or society is, the more stable it will be. Not necessarily. So how are we to respond to this world that is changing so quickly, that is uncertain, that is volatile, that is complex, that is ambiguous? What faith looks like today? I'm going to draw from our own Caribbean experience. A person of faith responds and looks like a coconut tree. That our sturdiness is our flexibility. The coconut palm standing at 50 to 80 feet tall, and its ability to bend 40 to 50 degrees without snapping allows it to survive many hurricanes. And let that soak in. We just had a hurricane in that, as a people in Grenada, we had to face, especially the islands of Caribbean, and the rest of the Grenadian islands that belong to St. Vincent. And I'm from one of the Grenadian islands, Peter Martinique. And the hurricane was able to root up huge trees with firm roots. But one of the trees that remained standing was a coconut tree. Why? Because they were flexible. coconut trees are flexible. Our sturdiness is in our flexibility. And that's why I want to say to you this evening that a rigid faith is weak. A rigid faith is weak. I'm not promoting tonight relativism. That is, anything goes. No. An authentic faith does not mean or involves a sacrifice of the intellect. It doesn't mean not being faithful to tradition. But my dear brothers and sisters, faith in, as we see in the life of Abraham, involves a docility. You have to be willing to bend. A docility that allows new movements according to the movement of the Holy Spirit. We must be able to move and bend and be flexible like a coconut tree wherever the Holy Spirit is leading us. Because if we are not flexible, we will break. If we are not flexible, we will break. And that's why I want us to spend about 2.5 minutes looking at a short video. And again, I'm drawing from our own Caribbean experience. And this is one of our artists from Trinidad and Tobago, Peter Mitchell, and he created these 2 carnival characters, Sagaboy and Tantan. And we'll use it as our text for reflection, as part of our text, reflecting on the theme of renewal tonight. Let's have a look. Peter Mitchell, an artist, wanted it to make these characters come alive. To be able to make it look as if the characters are real. In order for him to do that, to have done that, he had to make the characters flexible. And that's a lesson for us. That life invites us to be flexible, to be docile. Because if we are not docile and docile to where God, where the Holy Spirit is leading us, we will die, we will break, we will crumble. That's why there is a reason that modern engineers design structures with the ability to flex. When a structure is flexible, it can stand firm while it is twisted, contorted, and battered. When a rigid structure is battered, it tends to crumble and fall apart under the first signs of stress. Our faith is the same. Doubt, failure, tragedies, all of these might cause a rigid faith to crumble. But a flexible faith can endure these and remain strong. What will you do, my dear brothers and sisters? If you're raising a child, and I've seen it with my own eyes, I've seen where there was this parish of mine, and that caused the people to question life and question God. So there was this woman, and she's dead now, may God rest her soul, beautiful soul. But she was a drunkard. Practically, she spent most of the time in the wrong shops. But every Saturday morning, she came to the church religiously to clean. But on Sunday morning, when it was time for Mass, she was there, again faithful, every Sunday. But she would never enter church. She stood at the front of the church, the entrance of the church, but she never entered the church. I suppose she felt unworthy. Ask yourself why. How come? We cannot understand. That's why we have to be flexible. We cannot judge. When it comes to God, we cannot be stiff. We have to give way to God. We have to give way to the movement of the Spirit. Because if you don't, you will die. I also have encountered people, parents are very faithful, in the church every day, every Sunday, who pray the rosary with their children. And I know one family, one drunks, one is a Muslim. None of them goes to church except one. What will you do if that's you? If you're not flexible, you will crumble. Your faith will fail. Because it seems to you, where is God? My children should be like the woman who spends most of the time in the road. It's not. If you are too rigid, you will crumble. Your faith will crumble. You have to be open to believe that even if that is a situation situation, even if you're faithful to God, you have to realize, even in the messiness of life, God is faithful. God is faithful. Matthew chapter 7 verse 24 identifies the foundation of the house to be solid rock. He says to Peter, Peter, you know, on this rock I will build my church. The text does not specify the material used to build the church or to build the house. We are not told. Because why? Because solid rock is God. The solid rock is God. That God is the foundation of the church. And God is in control of everything. In what may seem chaotic, He's preserving, He's progressing, and perfecting His kingdom. God who is faithful, God who is the rock. And that's why, my dear brothers and sisters, the church is divine, and the church is human. The church is human. And that's why our consciousness of our sinfulness and the consciousness of our brokenness must be accompanied by the consciousness of being children of God. As children of God, we acknowledge our brokenness, we acknowledge our fragility. But we must be confident in God, in God's transforming power and His grace. That's the problem. The problem today, the problem of the world today, is that we are part of a church that is divine but human. And therefore, in the church, as we journey with each other as a community, you will experience brokenness. What will you do? Leave? Abandon the community? But you know ourselves that we all are broken. We all are fragile. What will you do? I'm looking for a perfect church. That is the church in which we are invited to renew our faith. Because people are leaving the church because of our brokenness. We are broken. That's a fact. That's reality. You can't run from that. You go elsewhere, it is the same. Oftentimes we want to be the rock ourselves. But only those like a coconut tree who are aware of their vulnerability can survive this way. Unless we are flexible, we are docile to the movement of the Holy Spirit, life will deal with us harshly. Unless we are docile to the Holy Spirit, life will deal with us harshly. Sometimes the problem in our life, sometimes we want to blame the devil. We want to blame some evil, put it on some evil. But sometimes the problem is our own unwillingness to let God and allow God in our lives. You know, this Christian life is grace. We can't live this Christian life by our own strength and power. But only grace. Only grace. Only grace. Most Christians have become fundamentalists, robbing Christianity of its mystical dimension. We want absolute certainty about everything. Well, God is mystery. God is mystery. And because we want absolute certainty about everything, we make God into a boring, dull, and static reality. God is dynamic. And I want you to remember this. God is dynamic. God can be dynamic and yet consistent. God can be dynamic and yet trustworthy. God can be dynamic and faithful. God can be dynamic and stay true to his character. God is dynamic. Amen. There was a time in the history of the church, if a young man or a young woman came from a single parent family, that young man or young woman was not accepted in the seminary, nor in the convent. But that had to change. Because, you know what? Surveys have shown, and it's a reality today, most, practically 90% plus of seminarians, I don't know if it's the case in Africa, but I know for Caribbean region, they come from what we refer to as broken family, single parent family. If we had stayed with the rule that only young men, young women from what's not perfect family at all could only to become priests, I would not be here. Practically all priests would not be here, would not be priests. We have to let go and we have to move with the Spirit of God. Because if we remain firm and if we remain authoritarian, we will come, we will die. Because you know what? God is dynamic. God can fulfill his will even in the messiness of life. He has the ability to fulfill his will. And that is the mystical life, the hidden life of God. As we journey through life, we stumble upon. And I end. We, like Abraham, do not always know where we are headed. And like Abraham, we walk in order to live. Abraham saw God because he continued to search for the will of his God in the midst of a dark night. And right now, we can see in the dark night. Sometimes we don't know what tomorrow will bring. It's not clear to us.